I just want to apologise to Al's mum, your mum's, and my mum. Okay, maybe not mine. She goes for another team. And I'm sorry to everyone. I was very naive. I am so sorry for everything that has happened. Because, in spite of what Al says now, it is my fault. Because it was my idea to start this podcast, and I insisted. I insisted on everything. I insisted that we should talk about the Lions. I insisted that we go off on regular tangents. I insisted that we take the P155 out of ourselves. Everything had to be my way. And this is where we've ended up, and it's all because of me insisting that we're here now, hungry, cold, and hunted. I love you, Mum, Dad. I am so sorry. What is that? I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them. We've passed the magic mark of 9,000 listens and downloads. Sorry about that. There's really no witch here. However, I do want to thank each and every one of you who is listening across all the podcasting platforms we upload each episode to for your continued support. We do this as a hobby. We don't generate any income or monetization, and we are not employees of the AFL or the Footy Club. We're a couple of die-hard fans just like you, and we are so appreciative of every single one of you. Anyway, listen on as Al and myself discuss the ins and outs of our big match against the Crows, as well as chatting about the big issues of this week and a little bit more. So hit that theme music now. Hello, Lions fans, and welcome to round 9. We play the Adelaide Crows this Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Australian time. Check your local time conversions if you live outside of the eastern states, because I have no idea since daylight savings finished where we're at with the rest of Australia now. We have some big ins. We have some very unfortunate outs. And here to talk about all of that, the issues facing the league and the club and a few other little bits and pieces we're going to talk about, is my co-host, Al McGovern. Welcome, Al.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Ash, how are we?
Yes, very good now.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Had a very busy day today at the old office, and yeah, missed out on a lot of what's happened. And I guess sort of off the top, we probably should touch on, and this is not Lions related, but it's the passing of Cam McCarthy.
Yeah, very late information this afternoon on that one. That was a bit of a shock, I think, for everyone in the footy world.
Yeah, and look, I'm still not totally up to speed with the full details because I've been pretty rushed for most of today and this evening. But look, it is really unfortunate, and my oldest son is actually a Freo supporter.
Yep.
Not really into footy much anymore. That he's gotten a bit older. He's an adult now, and he doesn't really care. But back when he was into footy, and we used to go to Freo games whenever they played in Melbourne. And that was around about the time that Cam McCarthy was sort of in and out of the team trying to make a name for himself, and they were playing him as a key forward when he clearly wasn't quite big enough to fill that role. But that was Freo back in the days. And yeah, my son used to like him. I sort of never really had an issue with him as a footballer, but we were all aware of his mental health issues.
Yeah, well, I didn't know a huge amount about him apart from the controversy about when he moved from the Giants to the Dockers a few years back. But apart from that, I didn't really know too much about him. And obviously, there's no in the articles I read, there's no official explanation. But whatever happened was a very tragic circumstance for someone who's 29 to lose their life is just pretty miserable.
Yeah, that's right. And look, I guess when you're battling your demons, it's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel and to see a way out.
Yeah.
I think everybody battles some demons at different times in their lives. There's no hiding from that fact. For Cam, he was a really high draft pick. I can't remember his exact selection number, but a lot of expectations were placed on him. He was at he had to move a long way from home to a struggling club at the time.
Yep.
Very young, 17 years old, didn't know anybody. Nobody knew him over there.
Yeah.
Basically, and I've heard interviews of Toby Green and a few, like Steve Caniglio and a few of the other guys who were there early on, and they were basically left to fend for themselves. They'll
Yeah.
put in houses with 3 or 4 17-year-old guys who'd never been away from home before, never been away from their parents, didn't have any life skills, no cooking skills. There was no welfare officer until a couple of years into the program. And yeah, look, life would have been incredibly tough. And he then went through that situation where he wanted to go back home. And rightly or wrongly, you can have your own opinions on that. He sat out for a year of football because the Giants wouldn't play ball with the Dockers. And unfortunately, he just never really sort of came back into football the way he would have liked, and retired way too young for a guy with the talent that he was said to have had.
Yeah,
And
well, I'll be honest. I wasn't a huge fan of him doing that, but every man makes their own decisions, and he was a grown man. He made his decision and he stuck with it, and eventually got back home where he wanted to be.
yeah,
Yeah, and then once he was kind of back there, I heard when he kind of fell off and wasn't on an AFL list anymore, but I hadn't really obviously been keeping tabs on him or anyone like that or, around the West or anything like that. But one thing I do want to say just before we move on to happier topics, um, the West, as in the actual printing agency, media outlet,
yes,
big shame on them because they put an article out, obviously, as everyone did over there, but theirs was behind a paywall. And I was unable to find information about the article, just a headline. So they were monetizing that one. And I understand that they probably do that with all of their articles, but it just felt a little off, locking that kind of information behind a paywall. So
yeah.
I wasn't too happy with that, and I just wanted to mention that really quick.
I think under those circumstances, and you see it a lot with other organisations in the media where they'll come out and they'll they might have like a lot of their articles are behind paywalls, but they'll release certain topics of articles to the public in the public interest, like if there's drug smugglers have been arrested, or um, people that have committed crimes I can't really mention because we'll probably get shut down by Spotify or YouTube or whoever. But yeah, and
It
like
just felt like really poor
yeah,
form from them to be doing that.
yeah,
And I'm sure they weren't the only ones doing it. And I'm sure it was probably just an automatic thing that they have for every article that they publish to their website and all that sort of stuff. But it just felt dirty and it felt wrong. And I just wanted to call that out because I didn't agree
yeah.
with it at all. And I don't think I was alone in that. There was a lot of people online saying similar things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, as you said, it was probably an automatic thing. It's probably something that in the scramble to be the first ones to get the story out. And unfortunately, as sad as the circumstances are,
Mm.
there is a scramble to get that story out because you want to be the first. You want to be the one that everyone references when they're speaking about it.
Yep.
And that's the nature of the media. I've worked in the media in the past, and I know how it is. And
Yep.
In a lot of ways, I am glad that I'm not involved in that space anymore for a lot of those reasons. But look, I just want to say as well, like before we do move on, if you are battling demons, if the black dog's knocking on your door, if you feel like life's getting too tough, talk to someone.
Yep, definitely.
Like, and if you know someone who's trying to reach out for help, listen. That is the biggest step that people can take on either side is to talk and to listen.
Yeah, and even if you
Yeah,
think that there's someone in your life, that you don't necessarily think maybe struggling with that, just reach out to some old mates, just see how
yeah.
they're doing.
Check
You
in
never
on your
know.
friends.
You never know how important a message like that might be to someone.
Yeah, check in on your friends. Check in on your family. Check in on your workmates. If you know someone and you think there's any sort of sign that they're not doing well, talk to them and listen.
Yeah, it goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. It's like I must admit I'm pretty shaken up at the moment. So just talking about that because there's way too much and
Mm.
so many young people have taken their own lives due to various circumstances, and it's becoming more of an epidemic with online bullying and workplace bullying and those sort of things taking
Yeah,
place. And people just listen to your friends and listen to your family when they need your help.
yeah, it doesn't take much, and it can mean a lot.
Yeah, it does. All right. Well, I guess we should move on to some more happier things. I guess.
Definitely.
Well, in this instance, so the teams were finalised today for our game against the Crows,
Yep.
which I don't know if I mentioned. It's at the Adelaide Oval. Um, the Crows have gone in with an unchanged lineup,
Yes, I did notice
which,
that.
as you would, having won their showdown last week against Port Adelaide, who carrying that form on by currently flogging the living daylights out of the Cats
I know.
at the Health Fund Stadium.
It's still early, but I mean, what's
Yeah.
about halfway through the second quarter or something like that, and they're really crushing the Cats at the moment. That could change though.
Yeah, well, I had to go pick up my other son from work just before we came on air, and yeah, it's pretty quiet around town here in the old G town. And I reckon
Surprising.
tomorrow morning when I get up to go to the gym, it's going to be extremely quiet.
Eerie.
Yeah. So yeah, and there used to be a saying when I first moved to Geelong. There used to be a saying amongst business owners or people who were, I guess, suppliers to businesses. They used to say, "You always know when the Cats have won because everybody's buying more and is paying
Yep.
cash. When the Cats have lost, people always want to pay with post-dated checks." Yeah, it's a funny old town down here. So for us, the Brisbane Lions, we have some changes, 3 forced changes unluckily.
Yes.
Lincoln McCarthy and Darcy Gardner, as we now know, are out with ACL injuries for the rest of this season and most likely for a fair chunk of next season.
Yeah, devastating. McCarthy's my
Um,
favorite player
yeah,
on the current list, and yeah, that was a bit of a gut punch. And then for all the other injuries to happen so quickly in succession was another gut punch.
yeah, and look, I've been an outspoken lover of Lincoln McCarthy, and um, of course Darcy Gardner, a local boy from down my way, young young Darcy running around for the Queenscliff Cooters back in the days, I still recall. And yeah, like whatever you think of him as a footballer, he's such a club, such a great club man, and yeah, to see him go down just as he was starting to, I guess, look good in the role he was playing.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a lot of, ahhing over the last couple of weeks about, should he be in the forward line and all that sort of stuff. And then, he kicked 2 early goals, and everyone was kind of going, oh, okay, maybe there is something to this. And
Yeah,
then he was injured not long after that. So, bit of a
yeah.
roller coaster of emotions on that one.
And I think both of those knee injuries looked really bad. I mean, we talked about it a bit, where
Mm.
I said usually with an ACL you can limp off or you can walk off, but these guys were really in a hell of a lot of pain. So it's not good at all.
Yep.
And yeah, the other out was unfortunately Noah Ransworth, who was probably having a career best season, and just unluckily he's out with concussion protocols. And as we said, no malice in that incident at all. Just it's something.
No,
Yeah,
but hopefully it's just a 1 week of the protocols, and hopefully he's not having any lingering side effects because we've had some bad luck with that in the past with
yeah,
players, and a lot of obviously we're not alone in that. That's kind of a thing that's really happening around the league at the moment. I mean, Angus Brayshaw
Yeah.
retired recently. There was, oh my God, the Collingwood player, I've forgotten his name.
Nathan Murphy, which
That's
I
exactly right. Yeah.
think we had a bit of a chat about him a couple of weeks ago. And yeah,
Yeah. So it's happening all over the place. It's definitely not a problem that's unique to us. And it's a really tragic problem. So I really hope that it's just a 1 week of Fanoa and he's not doing too bad.
yeah, 100% on that. Like I said, he was having career best season, and well, both of us, not just myself, but both of us were up and about with him this year too. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, fingers crossed he gets back next week. And yeah, if you're listening, Noah, you might not be, but you might be. Hope you're feeling good, mate.
Yep.
We're right behind you, and the other boys as well. So now, on the positive side of the ledger, we have 3 guys coming into the team.
Mm-hmm.
We have Chee, our boy, returning.
Yep. We love him.
We love him like he was our own brother or son or
Yep.
cousin.
Son
or
for you, brother for me.
Probably almost grandson for me. No, I'm joking. I'm not that old. Although I did say that to one of my cricket teammates during the preseason cricket season. He's like, "Oh, how old are you really?" I said, "You know what? I'm actually old enough to be your grandfather." That's pretty tragic. Jaxon Pryor's back in the team.
Yeah, I don't mind that one actually. I really
yeah.
Is this his first game for the season? I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting one because he's done pretty well in the past. I know he's had his critics and stuff as well,
Yeah.
but it's a good selection. I think he's got a good amount of experience, like what 30 games or so, maybe a little less than that.
Yeah. I did hear on another podcast a couple of weeks ago where they were putting his name forward. I think they said it was about the 30-something game mark, but not 100% on that.
Hmm.
And here's a bloke who hasn't played any senior games, who's coming into the team for his debut, our third debutant within a week.
Yeah.
Is our man Shadeau Brain.
That's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it looked.
I've been waiting for this one since the day he was drafted.
As I mentioned in an earlier episode, I spoke to Shadeau after our VFL game at the Hangar.
Yep.
And I told him that day, I said, "Look, you'll be in next week, mate. The way you played today, they couldn't possibly leave you out." And that was, Connor McKenna had the hamstring injury at the time, and I thought, yeah, it's just an instant, and he walks.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen as quickly as what I would have hoped. And yeah, my second oldest son is I've mentioned that many times. He's a massive Shadeau Brain lover.
Yep.
I actually put a photo of the two of them on my Facebook today. He said, "How good is it when your boy gets his senior debut?" And people thought I was talking about my son. I said, "No. I'm talking about his favourite player." So
it's kind of crazy that someone who has never played a game of senior level football before has such a cult following behind him. It doesn't happen very often.
I reckon it was a mullet when he got drafted.
Yeah.
I just took one look at that at the time. I thought, yeah, I'm in with this kid.
He's got such an interesting story as well. I mean, like, obviously the name,
Yep.
but being one of 13 kids as well, that's a whole other kettle of fish. Can't even imagine that living situation growing up.
Oh, yeah, like so I've got siblings and I've got step siblings. So I've got basically a couple of blended families.
Mm.
And I think we only come to about half the amount of siblings all up as what they've got. And like 6 of us is still pretty goddamn crazy.
It's like, just imagine the Brady Bunch, but double it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's like, but I think it helps build character as well. And like, like I look at my daughter and think there's no way she would be as resilient as what she is if she didn't have older brothers. And
yep.
And also for my sons, they may not have had the same respect for women as what they do if they didn't have a sister.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's possible.
It's good. It helps build character. But yeah, look, Shadeau Brain's had a really good season, in my opinion, in the VFL.
Yep, I agree.
This year,
Fagan said that he was the most consistent throughout the year in the VFL.
Yeah, and look, you can't look at pure stats for a bloke who plays off half-back either. Even blokes who play on the wing. The wingers and the half-backers are generally, they're not. It's not their job to get a lot of the ball. It's to It's, I guess, to do things on and off the ball, out on the outside. I guess not. They don't get sucked into the contest and then and get involved in big packs and whatever. And they're usually pretty good ball users, which I believe Shadow is. And
Yep.
same with Bruce Revel, like we saw last week in his debut. Really, really good ball user. Some people use the word elite. That's possibly a watch this space. But
Yeah, well,
yeah,
one thing that's kind of overlooked with the ins and outs is that Revel wasn't mentioned, so he's still in the team. So
yeah, as
they
is,
obviously were happy enough with him to keep him in. So that's
yeah,
great.
as is Logan Morris at this stage as well.
Yeah, I think he might be the sub. I would
Yeah,
think.
look, I'm not offended by that.
Hmm.
As I said
It'd be interesting.
as I said after last week's game, as good as he was, he's still not ready to be a regular AFL senior player just yet. But he's going to get there. He's going to get there quickly with the experience.
There's definitely some people out there that think if he didn't load up on the Mac, if didn't load up on the Maccas, didn't load up on the soup, you had the right size boots and didn't play a full VFL game before, that he would have kicked 5 goals. And geez, that would be nice, but
Yeah,
I don't know if I buy into that one.
look, he had the opportunity to kick 4,
That's right,
but
he kicked 1 goal free.
yeah, I mean, look, you don't know. I mean, football's a funny game. You can deal in what if, so you can deal in what actually did happen.
True.
And he had a really solid, good debut, all circumstances aside. You can't fault anything he did. And, he's got his opportunity now to get some more experience. Some, luck has fallen his way, I guess.
Yeah.
And the great Nicky Lauda, Formula One racer of the 70s and 80s, used to say, luck plays no part in winning or losing. You make your own luck.
Yep. That's exactly right.
I'm starting to sound like Neil now. But it's true. Like you do make your own luck.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I said it last week when we had, 2 debutantes. I mean, in the lead up to that game, we thought we were only going to have one, but we had two. I said that like debutantes is one of my favorite part of the game. Like
Yeah.
I love it. It's exciting. It's someone you haven't seen before. They get a chance. They're a clean slate. They could have a quiet game, but they could blow everyone off the park and blow expectations out of the water. Like it could be anything.
Yeah.
And it's always good to see someone pulling the jumper for the first time.
And
I love it.
more often than not as well, like you look back at guys who made the debut and there's always that one thing you remember, like Tom Fullerton took a mark and kicked the goal and it was probably only about 10 metres out, but at the time, to me, it was like he's kicked that from 80 metres.
Yeah.
Sam Skinner with that big tackle against the Eagles. There's quite a few others. I mean, not everybody has a debut to remember. I think John
Sam
O'Brien.
Skinner's debut was definitely one that sticks out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't go on to have an amazing career, but that was mainly just due to his horrible run with injuries.
Yeah.
Poor fella.
Yeah. I mean, look, John O'Brien famously recalls that I don't think he recorded a stat, did he, in his debut?
Yeah, it wasn't a good debut.
Yeah. And, like, I still remember Michael Voss's debut, so that's back before the merger, obviously, against Fitzroy, funnily enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad was getting remarried on that particular day, so I was up on the Victoria-New South Wales border where my dad and my new stepmom were getting married, and we were listening to it on the radio when we shouldn't have been, on a little handheld wireless, myself, my dad, and my new step uncle as well.
Yep.
Who was a Fitzroy supporter as well. And all we heard all day on the commentary was Michael Voss. He was doing all these amazing things. And I already knew who Vossi was. I still recalled him at the time kicking 15 from a wing in a, back then it was a Teal Cup under 18s state game.
Yep.
That's unbelievable. Like kicking 15 goals is huge, but yeah, doing it from a wing. But yeah, it's probably been others, but we'll end up talking about them all night.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're famous for.
Yes.
Famous in quotation marks.
I think infamous might be more of the word there, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've got a cool stat though.
yeah,
I just want it relates to a conversation you and I had off the podcast.
yep,
So you sent me an image during the week about it was from Zero Hanger about the amount of there was the 2024 durability check, and it
yes,
showed all of the players used per club, and then how many have played each game and all that sort of stuff. So we were sitting at 31 players used for the season.
yeah,
Now with these two, with a Pryor and Brain coming in, that bumps it up to 33 players in
yeah.
the squad used.
And,
It's a pretty deep amount.
and what I find interesting about that too is that there's been so much talk that Fagan. I guess centralised on Fagan, but I keep saying to people, he's not the only selector.
Hmm.
Well, he's got his favourites. He won't pick other guys. He's only picking his favourites every week. Well, now that we've selected 33 guys for the year already,
Hmm.
I think we're actually the second most used players in the comp.
Yeah, so I haven't obviously seen the updated figures for what other teams have done this round, so who they've brought in this round. But if we're keeping everyone else's figures at the same and assuming that they're all using players that they used last week, which is
Yep.
probably unrealistic because there were some suspensions and some
Yeah,
injuries and things
and
like that.
I think Richmond had some injuries as well.
Richmond's far ahead of everyone else. They've used 36
Yeah,
players
they've had
as of a week
like,
ago.
and that's the thing. And this is probably something more for media watch, but I'll bring it up now. Like
Mm.
the media go on and on and on and on and on about Carlton's injury list, and yeah, it's big. There's some really good key players that have been or are currently injured, but Richmond have been absolutely annihilated by injuries this year.
Oh yeah, they've definitely had the worst.
Like it's like us and Richmond, two of the more successful teams of the last sort of 5 to 6 years, are suddenly the luck's run out.
Yep.
On the injury front, and
Well, lucky for them, they were able to squeeze 3 flags out of their run, but
yeah, bastards.
we ran out of our luck before we got our first one in the run.
Yeah, well, that's it. So, I just before we do go on, I just want to give a bit of a shout out to another podcast, and these guys also have a Facebook page that they post a lot of content on, and their podcast is called Down the Guts, and the hosts are Joe and Adam. I believe they're both South Australians. One's a Port supporter, I'm pretty sure, and I think the other one's a Crow supporter. I've just had a listen to a couple of their episodes recently, and yeah, they a bit like us. They waffle on a bit and go off on tangents, but they're really informative. Their knowledge of football is actually quite good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and yeah, they're sort of if you want to listen to a good podcast, it's not run by one of the big corporations or one of the big media conglomerates. That it's just a couple of nuffies like us, or just a couple of nuffies like you guys, who are just
Yep.
general footy supporters, and they just talk just about every team. They're not just focused on one club like we are.
Yep.
And they bring in some good stats, and they do like a tier system that changes each week as teams go up and down with their wins and losses. So yeah, Down the Guts. Find them on Spotify, Facebook, and I don't know what other platforms are on. I've only listened to them on Spotify, but yeah, that's pretty good. And they go for about an hour. They give good coverage to every club. So
That's good.
good on those guys. And yeah, I might even hit them up to see if we can do a collab later in the season as well.
Yeah, if they're interested in doing that, I think that could be really good.
Yeah. So VFL, do we have a game this week?
Oh, question without notice.
Yeah, I looked on the fixture and I could not see us having a game anywhere. But then I looked down the bottom and there was no mention of us having a bye. So I'm none the wiser.
No, we must be having a bye because we're not on there at all.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Well, I guess that makes sense because otherwise, who would they play? We would, we can't play a Sandful club.
yeah.
So I guess that makes sense. It's a good time to do the bye,
Yeah, so that would suggest to me that
especially after a big smacking last week.
oh yeah, they probably and I reckon Hutto would have Ben Hudson would have had a few choice words to say to him in the rooms, as much as it was just a bunch of academy boys who are still teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still got to fire them up a bit and give them a bit of a rev up and tell them where they went wrong as well.
Yep.
So that would suggest to me that Darcy Fort, Dara Joyce, and Jared Lyons are probably all going to travel with the team down to Adelaide.
I'd say so. They probably won't have much else to do unless they're going to organise like a scratch match with some other team or something like they sometimes do.
Yeah, possibly. Back in the day, down here in Victoria, back in the day when in the sort of when Adelaide Crows first came into the AFL, there was a bye every week for a team, and they usually just went and played some other team in a scratch match down at a place called Skinner Reserve in Sunshine, which I ironically drove past this morning, and that's what triggered my memory.
Mm.
So our older listeners, my age and above, would no doubt recall those days where you'd read in the Herald Sun on a Friday afternoon, Fitzroy have the AFL bye this week, but they're going to play VFA Division 2 club Sunshine down at Skinner Reserve or something like that. Yeah, just a little bit of a trip down memory lane there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ancient times.
Yeah, it's good to see Derek Joyce, I guess, get sort of a bit of an opportunity to perhaps be an emergency or travel with the team because his form has been reasonably good in the VFL this year.
Yeah, he has not been bad.
Yeah.
And he's the only one on the emergency list there that hasn't played a game yet this season in the seniors.
Yeah.
Fort and Lions obviously have.
Yeah, and like had he come into the team, he would have been, pretty good cover for Answorth or Gardner or wherever they chose to put him. Like most Irish guys, he's pretty durable and he's also rock hard, super fit too.
Yep. Oh yeah, he was a handy little pickup. Obviously, he's not going to be a superstar, but he's definitely a utility, as they say.
Yeah, in the different sense of the word is what we used on our last episode. But
that's right. Yeah, we're a little inconsistent with our use of that word sometimes, aren't we?
Hey, that's what we do here. we make up our own rules as we go along.
Oh yeah, we're definitely experts, aren't we, mate?
Yeah. So I guess we'll get into predictions and that sort of thing later at the end of the episode, I guess.
Sure.
So I guess we'll move on, and if you're ready to rock, and this. I probably haven't given you enough notice, but we'll get into Al's mailbag.
Oh, yep.
And the floor is yours on this one.
Beauty. Okay, so let me just pull up what I have here. Beautiful. So basically just a few comments. We haven't received any voicemails yet. Hoping that will happen sooner or later, but at this stage we haven't got any of those. But we have got a few nice comments on YouTube and a few other platforms. So I just wanted to read those out. Some of them are reviews as well. So we always appreciate people taking the time to, listen is always really good as well. But even if you just got something to say, just chuck a nice comment down there. Even if it's, got constructive criticism, that's totally fine as well. Just, obviously be respectful. We're just doing this for free, just having chat. We're not really getting anything out of this apart from just enjoying the time talking to each other. So
that's it.
Yeah. So I'll start with the first one I got here. So this is on a YouTube, and it was from a Deshaun Pen 19271, I think.
I think that might be Panoni.
Panoni?
Yeah. Don't quote either of us on that. So if we did get your name wrong, we apologize.
Apologies if I massacre that. It just says keep it up, lads. So thanks for that. I greatly appreciate it.
And I did reply to that on YouTube as well, just saying that it's so much more fun for us when we love what we're doing and love what we talk about. And as someone told me that I probably love myself a bit too much, which I find funny because I'm always taking the P155 out of myself, as you know.
Yeah, geez, that's a rough one. All right, fair enough.
That came from a family member. So
that's always fine.
As you can tell, my family love me.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that one a bit later. So I got another one here. This was on Apple Podcast. It was a review. It's from Granger's Nambuka, and it says enjoying the podcast more than the games at the moment. An honest perspective of how the team is traveling. So that was good to hear. Yeah,
and that's what we try to bring to the table, isn't it? Just our honest opinions, and
that's it.
And opinions are never right or wrong. They're opinions.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, we say things sometimes that, people within the club might not agree with or appreciate us saying, but at the same time, we tell you exactly what we really think. We're going to be respectful at the same time. We're not going to, start slandering people and all that sort of stuff. But, if we've got an opinion and it's a negative opinion, I'm going to say it,
Yeah, well, that's it. And I think, as I said at the very start of this year, the fact that the position that the club's in, we have to be a bit more ruthless and a bit more direct. And if we see something, and neither of us are ever going to be absolute experts on AFL football. Neither of us have played at that level, and whatever. But we're fans, and we try to give a fan's perspective. We're never going to like just totally dazzle you with all these stats that even we don't know what we're talking about. I know I brought up the stats after the Giants game. I felt that they were a bit more relevant that week.
Yep.
Because we were really severely beaten in every stat except, I think, turnovers.
Yeah, like we're okay with stats sometimes, but we're no Sir Swamp Thing.
Oh, no, that guy's a legend.
He's freaky. I don't know where he tracks all his information down, but he or she. But
no, it is a he. I actually I have heard an interview with him.
Oh, okay.
I will find the link and I'll message you the link.
Yeah, please do. That'd be great.
Scroll back. It was on a podcast. And yeah, like the guy the way he's able to reel stuff off is just amazing. It's unbelievable.
It's freaky.
Yeah, like
love it.
Yeah, absolute legend of the AFL world.
Yeah, and he gives plenty of the talk show hosts on SEN to talk about, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well,
a lot of their segments are just his tweets, I've noticed.
Yeah, well, like I generally don't, as I've said, I generally can't really listen to SEN down here much, just because, like, you used to be able to get all the Melbourne radio stations down here in Geelong when I first moved to you nearly 15 years ago, but now you can pretty much vaguely get Triple M and the Good Time Oldie station, and that's about it.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway.
I've got two more for the mailbag. So this one comes from James Jams. I think I said that right. Jams. Apologies if I butchered that. That was on Facebook. Glad to hear the Lions/TAB email called out. How many reforming/reformed gamblers would have received that email? Poor judgment from the club. Money talks, I guess. So, like we said before, that was an honest view of ours. You know, people within the club may not like or appreciate us talking about that, but you know, we're not trying to make enemies here. But you know, that is something that you and I are pretty passionate about.
Yeah,
we're not big fans on gambling and gambling advertisements. So that was something that made us unhappy, and we wanted to talk about it.
And I think as well, considering like past player Alan Christensen, as you know, he came out and spoke so passionately about his demons with gambling and how moving to Brisbane saved his like saved him from going deeper into the depths of gambling and depression related to it.
Yep.
Yeah, you sort of think, well, maybe a little bit more sensitivities in order there, but
yeah.
And look, sorry, go on.
No, sorry. You go, because I was about to change the topic.
Yeah, so I switched. When I picked up my son from work tonight, I switched on to Triple M, and to see what was happening in the footy and whatever. And the very first thing I heard within 3 seconds of switching my radio on was Nathan Brown giving an update on the odds.
Yep.
So it's not just we're not just knocking our own footy club here.
No, definitely not.
The footy industry in general, I think, probably needs to peel it back a little bit.
Yeah, and it's a shame that so many clubs and the AFL organisation itself are so reliant on the money from that industry. So I don't think it's going away or will be toned down anytime soon. But I'd love the club to get back to a point where we don't have to rely on gambling as a sponsorship. Because I mean, we just got rid of Neds. We had Neds for a few years.
Yeah.
And I know we were performing quite poorly, and beggars can't be choosers of sponsors in the lean years. But yeah, it's just a shame. It's just something that I hope goes away soon, but I know it probably won't.
Yeah, and look, it's like me being a big motorsport fan as well. You know, back in my childhood years in the 70s and 80s and you know, into the early 90s, until the mid-90s, cigarette sponsorship was everywhere. Pretty much every team was sponsored by a cigarette brand. Every good team, Formula One, the touring cars, and then the V8s as they became, and motorcycle racing. And look, as a kid, I didn't even know that half of them were cigarette brands, really. But because
I've got a signed Ferrari Formula One poster in my room, and there's a big Marlboro logo on the car.
There you go. And you know, Peter Brock, I'm a massive Peter Brock fan. Distant family connection to the Brock family, very distant, might I add. Not enough to call him a cousin or anything like that, but yeah. So I was always a Peter Brock fan, and of course, up until the mid '80s, he was sponsored by Marlboro as well, and I knew that Marlboro was a cigarette brand, and and yeah, I thought, well, they must be spending a lot of money and whatever. And I thought in the mid '90s, I wonder if motorsport's going to survive without the cigarette sponsorship because and in drag racing, which is my main sort of form of motorsport that I'm into, Winfield in Australia was huge, and Winston and Camel in America were huge, and
yeah,
motorsport survived.
Well, that's it. They just pivoted to something else, mostly alcohol.
Alcohol. Yeah, look, it's ironic now. Like you look at it now, it's a lot of it is actually industry related sponsorship, like oil companies and sort of parts companies and whatnot that they've exploded like super cheap, putting millions upon millions into the V8s, Penrite oils, and whatever. And so, but the point I'm making is that motorsport survived without, and even the VFL back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. You look at the old posters as Winfield and whatever logos everywhere, but you know what?
Yep.
Motorsport survived without the cigarette money. The Australian cricket survived without Benson and Hedges and whatnot, and the AFL will survive without gambling if they limit it, in my opinion.
I was going to say there's plenty of other options out there.
Oh, look, people would be falling over themselves to get on board with the AFL.
Yep.
It's the biggest TV ticket in town, in pretty much every town, let's face it.
Yep. And I've just got one last one for the mailbag, and then we'll move on to a different segment.
Yeah.
This one is...
I've got one as well. I'll read after that.
Oh, okay. Beauty. So this one is from an anonymous person who has ties to one of us. And they asked me if my middle name is Lynch. I assume this is a reference to my first name being Alistair, which I was named after Alistair Lynch. It's not, but I could see why you think that. And my dad was a big Alistair Lynch /Bears/Lions nuffy. So I reckon that was a genuine discussion that he and my mother probably had. But I won't reveal what my middle name is, but I will say that it's definitely not Lynch.
Yeah, I mean, you could always go down to the registry office and change it.
That's not too late, I guess, is it?
Just don't change it to Clarkson.
Oh, God, no.
So I've just got one extra question from a young fellow, I'm assuming he's young, called Trent. And he wants to know, how good is Harris Andrews?
Oh, he's bloody ripper. A serious answer is, he's our captain. He's arguably our most important player at the moment.
Yes.
I think he's kept, the losses to within much smaller margins than what they may have been if he wasn't there. And he's probably helped us get over the line for a few of the closer wins as well.
And even in our biggest loss, he was our best player.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's having an all-Australian level season.
Yes.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he's top 3 in the BNF at the moment.
Yep. So the boys over in WA on the Backchat podcast have their Backman of the Year award, and they've got him equal first with Alex Pearce at the moment on the votes. They do a 3-2-1 every week. So
that doesn't surprise me, to be honest. Also, Pearce is having a great year as well, but I would say Andrews, I'm a nuffy, but I'm an honest nuffy. I think that Andrews would be having the best year out of all of the key defenders. Yeah,
look, I believe so as well. And it's like a few of the guys from a few of the other teams that are usually like Sam Taylor and what's his name at Richmond now, mate? Had a mental blank.
Rants?
No, Rants retired years ago.
Yeah, it's just a new memory.
Dylan Grimes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's had injury problems as well. So, and I think Dougal Howard down at the Saints, who's another sort of pretty solid defender. He's missed a few games of injury as well. So, but even still, it wouldn't have mattered if those guys are playing every week. The Big Chief would still be right up there in contention as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, for sure. I think he's definitely getting a jacket this year. I think that's, prohibiting any unfortunate, I won't say it, because we've had such a rancid run with it. Let's hope he continues on and has a fantastic year like he has had already.
And all bias aside here, and like we all know that I love Harris Andrews, and my whole family love him, and he's been really good to us many, many, many occasions. So I'm going to put all that aside and speak just purely as a football fan. He has to be in contention to be the All-Australian captain this year.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what metric they use. I mean, remember when they made Buddy Franklin captain a couple of years ago just because. Depends if they actually use a real captain as the captain, or if they, just pick the best midfielder or whatever they do. If, Luke Hodge is going to come out of retirement and they'll give it to him for a game.
Yeah, with Buddy, it was more of a...
Whatever they do.
It was more of a ceremonial thing with Buddy, though. It was...
Yeah.
But, just looking at... I mean, the guy that people generally say is the best captain in the league now that Joel Selwood's retired is Marcus Bontempelli. He's not really having the sort of season that he's known for. So, I mean, he may not even make the All-Australian team for the first time in God knows how long.
Yeah.
Unless they squeeze him in a forward pocket or somewhere he's never played. But you still wouldn't say that he's in contention to be the captain of that team.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so.
So that's something we can explore a bit later in the season, and I guess explore even further when it happens as well. Yeah,
definitely. Well, thanks for everyone for sending those in on those various platforms. We don't get a huge amount of them, but we do read all of the ones that do come through. So if you want your comment read out on the show, just send it through to one of the platforms. Rate us on Apple and Spotify as well if you can. Like and subscribe on YouTube, all that sort of stuff. We're not asking for money.
No.
Just a bit more of your time, and we appreciate everyone that listens regardless. So thanks for that, everyone.
But if you do want to give us some money, we're never going to say that. Just joking. We don't want your money.
Yeah, let's wait for the next sports bet sponsorship email, right?
Yeah.
Surely it's coming after the conversations we've had.
I also, just before we do move on from that as well, I got a little bit of direct feedback. It seems to be that the intro to our last episode tickled a few people's fancy.
Oh.
And a few friends of ours and a few other people have gotten sort of directly in contact with me, and I really loved the intro that you did for the last episode. It was really good, bit tongue in cheek, and
you're talking about your opener, not necessarily the theme song. Okay,
the little bit that I do before you come on. And
I always like it too, to be honest, because I listen back to them sometimes, not every episode, but if I'm short on podcasts, I usually chuck ours back on. And I always love your openers; they're one of my favorite parts.
I do want to say though, you really put me under the pump here. The pressure's on for me to perform on a weekly basis.
Mate, you're going to get dropped if you don't keep up the consistency, is all I'm saying.
And people my age and older will remember a fellow by the name of Raymond J. Bartholomew's, who used to go on Hey Hey Saturday and read some poetry with a beret on. Well, I'm going to have a crack at doing something like that just without the beret because I don't own one.
It's not too late.
Well, will a Fitzroy Football Club cap do?
Yep.
All right, I'll put it on back to front.
Yep, that'll do.
Because that's what all the cool kids do.
No one's going to see it anyway. We're not a video podcast at this stage.
Yeah. Well, I've had a few people ask about that, and I just said that.
Wait and see.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah, I just said, look, you don't really want to look at us. It's hard enough.
We want people to like the show, Ash. Come on.
It's hard enough that you have to listen to me talk. So. Just having a laugh at our own expense.
That's it.
All right, well, let's move on and we'll get into Media Watch now. You said you weren't bringing anything to the table tonight.
Yeah, I couldn't really find anything because there was a bit of miscommunication. I thought it was something necessarily to do with us, not just AFL wide.
Yeah.
So didn't really find too much Lions related stuff in the media, so I didn't have anything to bring this time. But I understand that you have a few things lined up for Media Watch this week. Yeah,
and just before we do go into that, sorry, I just remembered as well. And I don't want to go into too much detail on this because the punishment's been handed out, apologies been made, and all that sort of thing. But the homophobic slur, I can't even say the word properly, directed at one of our players in the Q Clash. It's a pretty dumb thing to do after the fact that the AFL did come out recently and say, look, Jeremy Finlayson, Alistair Clarkson, they've copped smaller punishments, but the next guy to do is going to cop a big one, and the next guy after that's going to cop a big one. To be honest, for starters, there's no need for it. There's no need for name calling. There's no need to bring any of that stuff to the table.
Yep.
And I would say if someone has to resort, look, I love a good sledge, but I would never stoop to that level. If
just be creative.
Yeah, like I'll have a few laughs about, the way a guy's playing their game or struggling to play the game.
Yeah.
You've got to draw a line somewhere, and there's some things you just don't do, and it's like a moral code, I guess. But if you're going to have to resort to name calling and slurs, maybe have a look at yourself and wonder why you're not getting a kick, and maybe realize that maybe you're not talented enough to get a kick, and that's why you've got to resort to that garbage. So that's all I've got to say about it. No names. We know who it was. And as I said, the punishment's been handed out. We move on, unless you want to add to it.
No, I think that's well covered. Sledging is one thing, but like I said, just get creative. Don't just fall back to getting offensive. I got pretty thick skin, so if someone said it to me, it wouldn't necessarily bother me. But at the same time, everyone kind of agrees across the board that that's just something that you don't do. If you're going to sledge someone, just do it in a fun kind of way where you don't have to be that brutal about it. The old "who are you" is always a good one. Like you pretend to not know the person you're lining up on.
Yeah,
I've heard many people say that crushes their spirit way more than being a derogatory slur thrown in their way. So
well, Gary Ablett Senior famously used to walk up to his opponent every week, go to shake hands, pull his hand away, and say, "What's your name, mate?" And he did it to Jason Dunstall one day as well. It was like, at the time, I think Dunstall had about 800 or 900 goals to his name. But
that's exactly right. I think that would throw me off way more than someone throwing a generic derogatory slur like what was said.
Yeah, and you know what? Karma has a way of sorting these things out too. I got sledged in the game. I got personally sledged in the game of cricket this past season where I got run out, and an opposition player gave me a bit of a send off and mentioned a few things to do with my body shape and size.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I bit my tongue, and he opened the batting when it was their turn to bat, and my 14-year-old son got him out first ball of the innings, and
golden duck.
Yeah, so like I said, if you're going to make a big statement, you better have the runs on the board to back it up.
That's exactly right.
All right, so let's move back into Media Watch.
Beauty.
Now, I don't know if I love or hate this one. This was the Herald Sun. When did Collingwood and Carlton play? It was last Friday night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the most important game for the year, didn't you hear?
Allegedly. And the greatest thing of all time happened in the dying seconds of that game, allegedly.
And the greatest player of all time was responsible for it.
Yeah, and so the Herald Sun on Saturday morning came out with, well, firstly they had Nick D.
Yeah, we don't say, come on, mate.
I know.
You almost slipped then.
No. I gave myself a $5 fine last episode for mentioning his surname.
Yep.
Yeah, they had him on the front cover.
Mm-hmm.
They had him in all their promos for their issue ahead of all the political and other issues that are happening in Victoria, which includes the budget, the state budget and whatever.
Yep.
This guy was more important. And then they had him on the back page with the headline. And again, I don't know if I love or hate this one because it's quite creative. Achy, Dakey, Heart.
It's a no for me. If we were doing dive scoring, it'd probably be a 1.5 for me.
Yeah, look, if it was any other player but him, we probably would give it maybe a 6. But
no, we're not stubborn, Ash. What are you talking about? Come on, mate.
But you know what? It's funny how we're talking about giving him diving scores because he's kind of known for it, isn't he? But anyway, let's move on. Now, this one is it's a thing that I've hated for years and years and years. Is the way the media pile on coaches that are struggling for a win, and we know it this year. Chris Fagan copped it a fair bit.
Mm-hmm.
Years gone by, like Alan Richardson when he was at St Kilda, they just were merciless to him.
Yep.
And he wasn't actually the team weren't actually playing that bad, but the media got him sacked. And then they came out and blamed us and killed a football club. Oh, you're a bunch of dogs for sacking this bloke. He's a good bloke and whatever.
Yep.
So now we've got Luke Beveridge. And yes, Bevo is under a lot of pressure. I'm not a fan of him. And myself, I don't like the way his media performances and a few other things he does. The guy's a premiership coach, but yeah, that was like 8 or so years ago, whatever. But the way the media is piling on him to the point where he was asked in a press conference this week, are you going to get sacked this week?
Yeah, that's pretty poor.
Like, give it a rest. Just let the guy go and do his job. These people in these positions are already under way too much pressure as it is.
Yeah.
They don't have a life with their families. They're spending probably 16, 18 hours a day at their football club or doing football club work 7 days a week. They've got to be a father and a mentor and a coach and whatever else to 44, 45 guys.
Yep.
And then they've got to deal with you dickheads in the media. Just give it a spell. If he's going to get sacked, he's going to get sacked. That's up to the Western Bulldogs to decide, not you.
There's always got to be like a minimum of one coach in the gun at any one time, isn't there?
Yeah. Look, I don't mind the media questioning someone's performance. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Because that's why we switch on. We want to hear honest opinions about what's happening. But, don't take it too far because we've seen now that taking things too far can affect people pretty badly.
Yep, I agree with that.
So I brought up Freo fans recently and had a whinge about the West Australian newspaper and their coverage of Harley Reid. Yeah, look, it is a bit over the top. But look, it's all in good spirits, in my opinion. Now, Freo fans are like, oh, well, we're sick of hearing about Harley Reid. Well, their Flagmantle Facebook page, I don't know who runs it. I don't care. Most of their jokes are about as funny as mine. So that says a lot.
Top tier.
Yeah, right. So they came out in the last week or so with this story about Harley Reid, why he missed a game recently and went back to Victoria for a couple of days. And it was apparently because he was sending dick pics. Yes, I said dick pics to the daughter of a very famous sports person and coach in Australia. And he was cheating on his girlfriend. Rah, 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 rah. And then they came out and made all these other stories up about him being on drugs and whatever.
Oh, geez.
You can't have it both ways, guys. Like, you can't whinge that other people are oversaturating media coverage of him and then go out and start this stuff that you know everyone's going to talk about and everyone's going to share and everyone's going to keep referencing, especially when it's clearly, obviously, most likely not true.
Yep.
All right. Just use social media for good. Don't use it to start scurrilous bullshit rumours, which we already know happened with our club this year and with the Swans as well, with stuff that clearly wasn't true that got legs on internet platforms and, grew to be bigger than what they needed to be.
And it's weird how those rumours always end at the same spot, and it's they're going to leave to go to a different club.
Yeah.
That's what those stories always come to a conclusion is players going to leave the current club because of X rumor that's, may or may not be true, most of the time not true.
Yeah.
And it always revolves around X clubs talking to them. They're halfway out the door.
Yeah, the big Victorian clubs, it's like, yeah, sure, they do.
Hey, he's going to Carlton, sure.
Yeah, he toured their facilities apparently, and he was seen at the hangar. I mean, he was in Tongala, which is up closer to New South Wales than it is to Melbourne. But
yeah,
hey, make up what you want, but just don't make up bullshit like the stuff that the Flagmantle page did.
Yep.
This one's a little bit tongue in cheek. I watched this week's episode of Talking Footy, which I didn't even know was still on because I don't consume mainstream footy media. In fact, I don't consume mainstream media in general because most of it's just garbage. But I watched Talking Footy.
You're a hipster footy fan, aren't you, mate?
Yeah, man. Like
none of that mainstream stuff.
I rode my little cafe racer motorcycle down to Brunswick and had a deconstructed burger and a craft beer. twirled my beard around and
I've seen you with your detachable man bun that you carry around with you
well,
on the Velcro.
with the way my mullet's going, I can almost have a little man bun actually. But that's another story. Let's not bring vanity into it. So anyway, so on that panel, it's hosted by James Brayshaw and sort of co-hosted by Tim Watson, who kind of just sits in the background and has a half an opinion. But it's got Joel Selwood and Trent Cotchin.
Troy Cotchin. That is evil twin brother.
Yeah. Yeah, it's his evil twin brother because the guy who works part time for our football club, Trent, is a legend. We love him.
We love him for that small period of time that he's involved in the club.
Yeah, so Trent Cotchin is on the panel as well. But anyway, so basically James Brayshaw and Tim Watson on this week's episode somehow managed to force Joel Selwood to say that Harrison Petty is a good footballer.
Mm.
I mean, I'm just taking the P155 here, so don't at me.
I was going to say the media lies they never end, do they?
Yeah. Let's just quickly before I've got one more, but we were talking last night during the Melbourne and Carlton game, and I recall saying to you, this game's boring, I'm going to bed.
Yep.
And it's pretty much as soon as I did that, it must have got a bit more exciting.
Yeah, I didn't finish it myself. I saw that our mate was, 0 possessions at halftime?
Yeah, I think he had 2 tackles and that was about it. But yeah.
You can't have a turnover stat if you never get the ball, mate.
Yeah, that's right. You did say that to me last night. And how ironic would it have been that Carlton were 37 points up and they almost lost it? That would have been a cherry on top of the season for me, actually.
Yeah, but did you hear the conspiracy that the game's rigged and it's just Carlton rigged? Because Carlton always wins close games.
No, it's
a giant conspiracy.
As I said, I was pretty busy today, so I missed a lot of that stuff. And the guy I was working with today directly was an Essendon supporter, and he doesn't care about Carlton or Melbourne. So, unfortunately, there was. And me not being much of an Essendon lover, we didn't really have much footy conversation.
Yeah, fair enough.
So my last thing, and this is for the whole entire footy media. Now, I don't know how long ago it was. Whenever it was that Dimmer Hardwick was appointed as the Suns coach, everybody in the media was like, well, he's the Lord and Saviour. He's going to get them up to the peak of their existence. He's going to pull them out of the abyss. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. 8 rounds in, he hasn't done that. And suddenly they're questioning if old mate knows how to coach. I think
because anyone else would have done a better job at this stage.
Yeah, I think the 3 premierships probably answers that question for you guys. He knows how to coach.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same with Clarkson at North. He's a four-time premiership coach, and they're still not really doing that well. And it's kind of like, just give it time.
He's even won premierships in the SANFL. I think he had a pretty successful SANFL career as well.
Yeah, and that just adds to it. It's like, give it some more time. If these guys who are proven to be successful repeatedly at the top level can't get it done at this stage, then I can't see anyone else doing better with the exact same resources and players and everything else. Just give it time.
Yeah, and look, if any of the listeners are interested and have the opportunity, look for Dimmer's. You know how they do that press conference every week after training or whatever. Have a look for that, probably on the Suns' social media pages or whatever. I saw it get brought up on Talking Footy. Is that what it's called again? Yeah, Talking Footy. That shows how much footy media I consume mainstream. But yeah, his response to some of the questions he was being asked in the press conference were gold. I was like, I wish our coach responded like that every week. He just basically mocked them in return to say, he pretty much said what I said, it's round 8. I've won 3 premierships. I know what I'm doing. Just bide your time.
Yep. And I agree with that. I'm not a huge Hardwick fan myself, but I think that I completely agree with that, and I think that it's just something that needs a bit more time. I don't think anyone else would be doing anything better at this stage with the same opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. And that whole culture of the Gold Coast has to be turned around completely. Like it's got to. Yeah, anyone who came in this year was going to have to start from zero, like Stewie had to do before. And well, I mean, Rocket E didn't really improve their culture when he was there.
Nope.
I have my thoughts on his coaching credentials.
I will never forget the game where the Suns were getting pumped and he left the coaching box to go down to the physio to get a massage in the rooms while the game was still going on. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember he did leave the box. I didn't know he was getting a massage. I probably did.
I can't remember who they were playing, but I remember it happening very vividly because I was at a stage where I was having it was pretty early on, and I had my first child at that stage, so I was up, watching footy like basically all the time because I couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that game and literally laughing out loud that the coach, it seemed like he'd just completely given up on his job and it's just everything around. Like he had no interest in being there. He literally went and had a massage with the physio during the game.
And I think that might have been that game against Richmond up there when they got absolutely pumped and Jack Revolt kicked 10 or 15 or whatever it was he kicked. He kicked a lot.
Yeah.
I think that might even have been the game where Tom Lynch decided Richmond were a better team to go to.
Yeah. You can see that. You can see it happening in real time.
It's like they win more games than us. They're going to pay me more money, and they've got a better club song than us as well.
Hey, whoa! You don't like the trumpets?
Oh, that's about the best part of that song. Let's face it.
There we go.
And speaking of the Suns, apparently they're going to rebrand themselves.
Ooh.
New Guernseys, new logo, possibly new song, and maybe even a new identity to do with the Northern Territory.
Ooh. Scoop McPhee, hey?
No,
what do you got there, mate?
Mate, that's been all over the media all week.
Well, I heard about the Northern Territory stuff. I didn't hear anything about the Suns being linked into it, though.
Yeah, no, like the Northern Territory also put their pitch forward to be the 20th AFL team as well.
Yeah, I saw that, but I didn't see any Gold Coast tie-in.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, I guess we've probably got more AFL media down in my part of the world than they do up where you live. So
yeah, true.
Yeah, because
that's a fact.
Yeah. Speaking of which, my son who works at McDonald's, I probably shouldn't be saying that publicly, but you don't know which one he works at.
True. There's a lot of them in the country.
Yeah. He found it quite amusing that up in Queensland there's a Broncos burger at McDonald's.
Oh, yeah, beetroot and a few other things.
Hey, if it's got beetroot and pineapple on it, I'm in. I'll buy it.
I don't know if it's pineapple. It's definitely beetroot, but I can't recall if it's got pineapple on it.
Two of my favourite ingredients on a hamburger with the lot, it's got to have beetroot and pineapple.
True.
But yeah, like he's like, well, there's no Collingwood burger down here.
No. And I can't imagine like your local Macca's having a cat's burger. It just doesn't sound very appetizing, does it?
No, I won't say that. I'm not going to make any dim sim jokes. Listeners, I'm an animal lover, I promise you. I am a nature lover. All right, well, I guess we'll move on from the media because I don't like them very much, and they probably don't. They don't even know I exist, so that's good. I'm happy with that. We are introducing a new segment every week now, which is called Top Fives, and we're going to pick random little things that we're going to do a top five of, and generally it's going to be players of some persuasion and variety.
Yep, a little bit of homework between each episode.
Yeah, and how it's basically going to work is one of us, and it'll be me first tonight, and then next week it'll be you first. We'll each give a top five, but we're going to be a bit cryptic about how we go about it. We're going to make the other person guess who it is.
Mm-hmm. So I can tell you right now, you are almost always going to be better at this than me.
Not necessarily, because there might, like, I have a few
Suppose
blank.
if I get to choose the topic, it's interesting. But we have a topic set for tonight. Do you want to tell them what the topic is for tonight?
Well, we get to choose the journey, but not always the direction we travel, right? And speaking of journeys, we're going to have our top 5 journeymen. And we brought up the topic of journeymen in our last episode. And we decided the criteria for a journeyman is someone who's played with 3 clubs. If you go to a 4th or 5th or whatever club, you're a utility. And we made that one up. That's our own definition.
Yes, I did actually Google the definition, and apparently there's several definitions depending on which country you live in.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a car with 2 doors and no boot.
No.
Even though
this time.
That's what Australia's famous for. It rides on the utes back. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to go from 5 down to 1. I'm going to read out the clubs they play.
That's in order, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've ranked them. So I've ranked these guys in order based on what they've done for our club, not necessarily what they've done for the other clubs, because one of them was a Brownlow medalist elsewhere, but that doesn't mean that he's the best player there because he didn't win it for us. But maybe he is.
I wonder if we're going to have any overlap because we don't know. Yeah. Obviously, we're guessing. We don't know each other's answers.
Yeah. So if I say some that you've already got when you do your list, just don't make me guess it. Obviously.
Sure.
So I'm going to give an honourable.
That could be interesting as well, though.
Yeah, I'm going to give an honourable mention now. Had this guy retired or moved to another club, he would be second in the rankings because he's played 102 games for us, 37 goals. And played 37 for Gold Coast for 17 goals, 55 for Adelaide, 32 goals. Current player, so I'm not putting him in my top 5 just yet. And that's Jared Lyons. So honourable mention to Jared Lyons.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I also had an honourable mention as well, but I called it bonus round. But it looks like we both had the same idea without communicating about it.
Yeah, because I just came up with 6, and these are 6 I thought of off the top of my head. And the guy at number 5, I wasn't sure if he played any games for us. I knew he was at our club for 1 year. But that was it. So this guy from 1992 to 1998 played 92 games, 58 goals for Essendon. 1999, 9 games, 2 goals for the Brisbane Lions. And 2000, 13 games and 10 goals for the Kangaroos, as they were known back then. This one will be a tough one for you.
Yeah. I thought you were going in a particular direction, and then the Kangaroos threw me.
This guy, if you read those things out to me, I would have had to have a bit of a think about it. Should need some of that like Start of the Century ticking music.
Dun, 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 dun.
Glenn Ridge.
What year were they drafted again?
I don't know what year he was drafted, but his first game for Essendon was in 1992.
Oh.
And I don't know if he was a 1993 Premiership player or not. Now, another little bit of a clue with this guy was he also played in whatever our National Baseball League is called, whilst playing for Essendon.
Ooh, that's a fit guy.
Yeah, and he was not very tall, but he had the most muscular thighs I've ever seen in my life.
Interesting. It's not Lockie Neal's dad.
No, I don't know.
Oh, no, he's calves. His thing's calves, not quads.
Yeah, calves.
Ooh. Yeah. No, I'm gonna have to tap out on that one. I don't recall.
Yeah, so it's David Calthorpe.
No, I would never have guessed that.
Yeah, like I said, I had to look up to see if he played any games for us. I knew we had him on our list for briefly, but yeah. This guy, I reckon you'll probably guess this guy, but we'll see.
Okay.
So 1997, which is later than what I thought he started, to 2002, 126 games, 151 goals and a premiership for Essendon. 2003 to 2004, 34 games, 33 goals for the Brisbane Lions and a premiership. Pretty handy.
Pretty handy.
2005 to 2006, 27 games to 34 goals for Collingwood.
Is this Blake Carousel?
Correct.
Yes.
Well done. He's ranked number 4 because he played only 34 games for us.
Yeah.
Although the premiership nearly got him ranked number 3, but
I was going to say it felt like a lot more, but it must have just been the premiership that made him feel like he was around a lot more.
yeah, and I'd have brought it up a couple of times, like, I'm not sure how many games he played for us, whether his sons qualify under father son, but obviously they don't.
Mm,
He's only 66 games short of that, so
interesting.
3 seasons. Yeah, so at number 3, and this is a surprise as the third best journeyman off the top of my head anyway. So 2012 to 2015, 33 games, 35 goals for Geelong.
Okay.
Just missed out on a premiership the year before he got drafted, or the year he got drafted at the end of that premiership year. Probably wouldn't have played though because Tom Hawkins was a gun back then.
Yep.
And 2016 to 2019, 52 games, 34 goals for the Brisbane Lions. 2020 to 2022, 54 games. I was surprised he played that many for this club, and 6 goals for North Melbourne as a rookie for the entirety. And you should guess this one without any more clues.
Can you just repeat what year they left the Lions to go to North?
His last year was 2019.
Oh, Josh Walker.
Correct. Another
Yes.
local boy from my part of the world. Played for the Lara Football Club, which I think they're about 4.5 kilometres from where I live, their home ground. So there you go. Number 2, this one, you will never get this one. This is a way back in my days when I was a very young boy.
When life was in black and white? Black and white?
Well, I was 13 when 12 when he played his first game. So 1987 to 1991, 87 games and 51 goals for Fitzroy. Played on a wing. Not that makes any difference to you, I don't think. 1992 to 1995, 59 games, 74 goals for the Sydney Swans.
Ooh.
1996 to 1998, 41 games and 27 goals for the Hawks. And he was recruited from Christie's Beach in South Australia. I'm pretty sure played for South Adelaide as well previously.
What club was he at before he came to the Lions again?
South Adelaide, I believe.
Adelaide.
Before Fitzroy he would have been drafted. 86 was the first draft, so yeah.
Yep. That was okay. That was the year the West Coast and the Bears came in.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of a hint. He had a very similar last name with one letter different, one additional letter to a guy who played for both the Swans and the Bears.
Oh. No, I'll give up.
Darren Kapler.
Oh, yeah, no, I would not have guessed that.
Our Fitzroy people will remember very fondly Darren Kapler, as his name was on the footy cards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Caps wasn't his nickname either, but hey, we'll run with it. Running off the wing. I mean, the guy kicked about 160 goals in his career playing on a wing. So, pretty big numbers even back in those days. So he was a super footballer, one of the fittest and fastest runners in his era as well.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, so just didn't play enough games for Fitzroy for mine. The club should have kept him there. And he famously actually said in an interview that when he played for Fitzroy, he never actually got paid any money, but his mortgage got paid every month.
Well, I guess that's something, isn't it?
Yeah, and Fitzroy had no money, but yeah, they were looking after him in a different way. Now, the number one ranked journeyman, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the more famous guys to play for our football clubs since the AFL decided to bring in clubs from outside of Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
Recruited from South Fremantle, where he was an absolute superstar who I remember watching in my childhood, to then go to Footscray for 1985 and 1986, 47 games, 28 goals, Brownlow medal from the back pocket in his first year in 1985.
Okay, yep.
1987, so he's a foundation bear, through till 1991. Brisbane Bears, 101 games, 192 goals. Pretty good going for a bloke who wasn't a key forward.
Mm.
Also used to wear a long sleeve jumper with a short sleeve on the top. Sometimes two long sleeves. And 1992, he played 2 games for Collingwood for 2 goals.
Oh, 92 for Collingwood.
Yeah, not many people would really remember he played for Collingwood, but I only vaguely do.
Yeah. Oh, he won a Brownlow and was 85, you said?
Yeah, 85 for Footscray. Famously had a big spat with Mick Malthouse when he was the Footscray coach.
I was going to say, who didn't have a spat with Malthouse through the years?
Paul Lucuria never did because he was his love child, but
no, I'm going to have to give up on that one too, mate.
You might go, no, when I say it. Brad Hardy.
Yeah, I should have known that.
Yeah, like one of the Brisbane Bears era, probably one of the, in my opinion, top 3 players to represent the Brisbane Bears.
Yeah. So I got 2 out of 5.
Yeah, that's not too bad. So yeah, all right.
It's better than I thought, to be honest.
All right, off you go. It's your turn now.
And yeah, interesting. I've did mine a little differently. So I thought to make it a little bit more challenging,
Yep.
I wouldn't list which clubs they played for,
Okay.
but I do have a fair few stats and career stats for each of them.
And just before you go on, Geelong have had a massive growth spurt, and they're only 18 points down about 3 minutes into the last quarter.
Ooh.
And the Swans, 30.
I forgot it was a doubleheader tonight.
Yeah, 30 points up on the Dockers at Optus Stadium at the moment as well.
Yeah, right. Okay.
8 minutes left in the second quarter.
Fair enough. Okay.
Right, so go for it.
All right. So, and these are ranked in order, but I'm not in love with the order. The order could move around, but I'll list them in my 5 through to 1 being my absolute favorite.
Yep.
And I have a bonus one as well, which I think you'll get a laugh out of.
Here we go.
So, number 5, they were born in 1992, and they grew up playing for Sandringham. They were drafted in 2010 at pick number 61, and they kicked 86 career goals.
1992, so that would make him now.
Born in 92, yep.
Yeah, 32 years old now. Current player?
They're still playing in the competition.
In the competition, but not for us.
Maybe. They're
Mm.
still a current player in the competition.
Yep.
Maybe or maybe not for our club.
Tick, 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 tick. Trying to think of more recent players. So if they're still playing in the competition and they're in their early 30s, it kind of narrows it down a bit.
It does. It's not a yes or a no if they played for the club, if they're still playing for our club.
Okay.
Do you want another hint?
Yeah.
They were in your list, and it's the only player that we shared on the same list.
The only player we shared on the list.
As in, it was on your top 5.
Okay.
Maybe your top 6, including your bonus player.
Jared Lyons.
There we go.
I was going to say, because it couldn't be
I forgot
Josh.
he wasn't your number 5. I forgot he was your bonus player for a second.
Yeah, it couldn't be Josh Walker because he was drafted for the Geelong Falcons.
Yeah, Jared Lyons. Famously played for Adelaide and then Suns for only 2 seasons, and then came to us, and he's still one of our players. Good story there.
Joins Brendan Favola, Mitch Robinson, and Ryan Bastanak as Brisbane Lions players who have been delisted by more than one club.
True.
Yeah, not that that's a great distinction, but it is what it is.
Fun little stat.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 4. So this is where it'll get a bit more challenging because that one was kind of once I knew that you had that guy on your list, I knew it would be probably pretty easy. Number 4, born in 1968, grew up
Ooh.
playing for North Dandenong, drafted in 1988, kicked 80 career goals, and he got a best and fairest at 2 of the 3 clubs that he played for.
What year was he drafted, did you say?
He was drafted in 1988.
1988. Racking through my brain. 1988. Trying to think. Back then, the draft was not very scientific, and a lot of guys fell by the
No.
wayside. I think
So he
Richmond.
would have been 20 when he was drafted.
Mm. Um, well, it wasn't Carl Delena at Fitzroy. I remember he was drafted in the late 80s and didn't really go on with it. So,
It's not your final guess?
no, I'm just trying to think. Obviously, it could be a Bears player as well, I suppose.
Potentially.
Uh, Not Richard Champion was drafted late 80s. Would be about that age.
Do you want another clue?
Yeah, give me one more.
I won't tell you what their first club was, but they did go on to play for the Bears and then the Lions.
Okay. Was their first club the West Coast Eagles?
Bow, bow.
Okay, so it's not David Bain. It's not Alistair Lynch or Scott McIver, who played for the Bears and Fitzroy. It's not Andrew Buse, who played for the Bears and the Lions.
Got to take a stab here at some point, mate.
Yeah, nah, I'm done.
You give up?
Yep.
Craig Lambert, drafted by Richmond.
Go, Richmond, yeah.
Yep. He played 123 games for Richmond, and then from 1988 to 1993, joined the Bears from 94 to 96, and then obviously was part of the merger. Stayed on for the Lions till 2000.
And interesting thing about Craig Lambert, I believe he may have been the first Brisbane Football Club player to be an All-Australian.
Ooh, yeah, I'm not sure.
Him and Michael Voss were both All-Australians in
He did get an all. Yeah, go on.
1996.
That's correct. Yeah, I don't know if that was the first one, but that was definitely the only year that he got an All-Australian.
And actually, Darren Kapler, who I had in my list, he was an All-Australian in 1988 as well. So I've actually got a list of all the All-Australians in my notebook.
Yeah,
that's for another time. I reckon Lambert was the first Brisbane Football Club All-Australian, equal with Michael Voss.
Yeah. All right, so we've got my number 3.
Yep.
Born in 1966, played for Wilston Grange, joined the VFL in 1985, kicked 96 career goals, and he's famously one of the only 2 players to play for all 3 of our merged clubs.
Scott McIver.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
The other one being the man that I was named after.
Yes. And
fun little stat there.
Yeah, and we could have been cheeky and included I guess they are journeymen, aren't they?
They're both journeymen by our own definition.
Yeah.
I was going to try and be cheeky and lead you to think that I was talking about Lynch and then throw a Scott McIver at you at the end. But I opted not to.
Well, I knew Lynch was recruited from Tasmania, so
exactly. I knew as soon as I put the Wilson Grange in there, you would have gone, oh, no.
Yeah.
Fun fact related to what we were just talking about as well. So 13 players played for Bears and Fitzroy.
Yeah.
Only 2 of those 13 played for Bears, Fitzroy, and the merged Lions. So a little fun
Yeah.
fact for those listening.
Yeah. And Scott McIver was a really such an underrated footballer.
Mm.
Like he back in the day, so he was more like a modern day wingman midfielder now. He was mostly like a wingman, but he played half forward, half back as well. Ran about 191 centimeters from memory. So what, 6'3" in the old scale.
Yep.
Could run all day, super fit, and an interesting story too. So Robert Walls, when he was coach of Fitzroy, was down at the they had the Teal Cup in Victoria, and he was down with his recruiting manager, who probably would have been Arthur Wilson back then, I'm thinking.
Yep.
In the early 80s. Queensland's under 18s team, or under 17, whatever the age group was back then, were training, and they went down to watch a bloke called Jason Dunstall, who they'd heard a lot about from Cooperoo.
Oh yeah, just that guy.
Yeah, and they were down to see what he was going. It might have even been the late 70s. I'm not 100% sure, but they were watching him, and Robert Walls famously said, "He's too fat. I'm not recruiting him. Let's get this McIver fella to Fitzroy instead." And
had that pan out for him.
Yeah, well, McIver was good for Fitzroy in a short period he was there. Obviously, it was great for the Bears. But Dunstall would have been pretty handy.
Definitely would have been handy. So move on to my number 2.
Yep.
So this fella was born in 1965.
Yep.
He grew up playing for Nightcliff.
Darwin boy.
Yes.
Yep.
Joined the VFL in 1983.
Yep.
Pre-draft system, just joined the club that he went to first.
Yep.
Had 40 career goals. I have another clue here, but I'm going to opt out of giving it to you unless you get stuck.
Yep.
Because I think it'll probably seal the deal for you if I give you the last clue. Do you have any ideas?
Trying to think. I mean, shit. I used to live in Darwin. Shouldn't be swearing.
Born in 65, joined the VFL in 83. Had 40 career goals.
Did he have a very similar nickname to Dane Zorko, like a shorter version?
Potentially, maybe not.
It would have to be Michael Magic McLean.
You are correct. And my final clue for that one was the godfather of Indigenous players, as he was known.
Yeah, absolute superstar footballer.
Yep.
So good.
Famously only played one Brisbane Lions game, though, and he got injured in it.
Yeah. Amazing footballer. And from all reports, an amazing guy as well.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish that the club would pay a bit more of homage to him as well.
I think he got made into the Lions Hall of Fame last year or the year before.
Yeah, but it's not. It's more so we don't hear a lot about him, like in regular conversation, and that's us as well as fans.
Yeah, of course.
And even like at the Bulldogs as well. Like he was an amazing footballer there from all reports.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly before my time of watching VFL football at the time, but yeah, the nickname says it all, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, you don't get the nickname Magic for no reason.
No.
And my final one before the bonus one. So my number 1 is a man who was born in 1977, grew up playing for the Kenmore Bears, joined the AFL in 1996, and finished his career with 33 goals.
Kenmore Bears, they're up in Queensland, are they?
It's one of my local leagues.
So he's just slightly younger than me. Possibly narrows it down.
He's currently 46.
Yeah.
Definitely retired.
Was he born in Australia?
No.
Would that be Mel Michael?
It is indeed. Good job.
Yeah, it's funny because he was on the front bar this week,
Yeah.
which I haven't watched yet, but apparently Laura Kane, one of the AFL bosses, was gushing over him because he was her favourite player when she was a kid. So
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah, I've seen just that little grab on YouTube.
How old's she then? Because he started
Uh,
playing in '97 for Collingwood.
she said she was 10 or 11 when he went to Brisbane.
Oh, okay. Early 2000s. Yeah, I guess. I guess that checks out. She's
Yeah,
probably in her 40s.
yeah, probably thereabouts. Yeah, it's
Yeah, good
uh,
one. So you got 3 out of 5. Oh no, 4 out of 5. No, 3 out of 5.
yeah, three. Don't give me too much credit. Don't pump me
No,
up too much.
3 out of 5. I got a little fun bonus one for you though. Do you want to hear
Yeah,
it?
go for it.
So this player, born in 1991, grew up playing for the Sandringham Dragons. He was pick number 29 in the 2009 draft and has kicked 456 goals.
Currently not playing for us though.
Currently not playing for us.
That's a lot of goals.
That's almost a shitload of goals.
14 years into his career, 400 goals.
456 goals.
Yeah, 456 goals. God, he's got to be one of those ones that got away top players, isn't he?
Mm,
Were we his first club?
no.
Okay.
It's worth noting that this guy's still in the league, but he's not playing for us.
Yeah, so we were his second club.
Yes. No,
Okay.
we were not his second club.
So does he almost fall into the utility bracket here?
That's why this guy's in a weird, like, purgatory of not quite a utility, but he's a journeyman, but not quite a utility. But there's a weird stat here, and if you guess who he is, I'll tell you you'll realize what the weird stat is.
Um, is it possible that he's been on a couple of lists without playing games for him, maybe?
No.
Okay. Trying to think of all the big goal kickers around the league.
Hmm. Are there any that have played for the Brisbane Lions at some stage in their career? Do you give up?
Yeah, go on, hit me.
Jack Gunston.
Yeah, you got
So
me there.
I got you good because he technically has only played for 3 clubs, but he's gone back to Hawthorn. So he had a separate stint at the Hawks. So he's
Yeah,
made 3 transitions. But it's only 3. Like he's moved teams like 4 times, but he's only played for 3 clubs.
yeah,
So I got you good with that one.
yeah. You got me. You got me good with Magic McLean too, because
Mm,
obviously he played for the Bears and Lions. I guess we'll get into we'll sort of get close to finishing up now. So
we'll do our prediction and then we might head off, eh?
yeah, 20 seconds to go. Put Adelaide up by 6 points.
Geez, a lot closer than I thought it was going to be at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. It was like 90 to 20 something, and now it's 101 to 95. So
Jeez Louise.
Geelong have come home with a massive wet sail. So yeah,
What's your prediction for our game?
for our game, so I've had to have a long, hard think about this because obviously our very recent record there in the last season or so, not so good down at Adelaide Oval.
Yep.
But we did have a pretty good run of it sort of early once sort of Lockie Neal and Lyons and those McCarthy and those guys came to the club. I don't think we played Adelaide there too often, but we beat Port there a few times.
Yep.
So we have got good form there, but we've also got bad form. Look, I think I stick with old mate Will Schofield and think we keep winning.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, he had us winning our next 6, including last week. I think we win Yeah, Port won by 6 points. I think we win not by a lot, maybe just a goal or just over.
Okay. Single digits then.
Yep. Charlie Cameron to kick 3+ goals.
Oof. Against his old mob.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
Can we really keep referring to him as his old mob when he's probably spent more years with us than them?
Well, I don't know. I refer to Nathan Buckley as Brisbane Bears great. Nathan Buckley.
Rightly so, because he's well, there you go. His debut season, I think he came second in the best and fairest.
Yeah, of course. Brisbane Bears great, mate.
Yeah.
My prediction for the game. Look, we've been rocked by injury, as
Yep.
everyone knows. That's nothing new. Crows haven't been playing well, but we haven't been playing well usually. Our recent history is not too great down there. I'm actually going to tip a loss, but not a blowout. I think because they're not in particularly good form, Adelaide. I think it'll be in the teens. So I'm going to go with a 2-goal loss.
Yeah, their form's been pretty similar to ours. Even their form timeline,
Yeah.
like they've started winning when we started winning as well.
Yeah, I think they got their first win in the same round we got our first win. Was that
Yeah.
right? Or around that mark.
And then they've won their last 2, so sort of similar.
Yep.
Yeah, their first win actually might not have been that round. It was against Carlton.
It was a while because it was we were one of the last few winless teams with them.
Yeah.
Obviously, North Melbourne's still winless, but yeah, they were one of the teams that was around the mark with us. So yeah, I think it's going to be a close loss. You think it's going to be a close win? I think either are possible, to be honest. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to call.
Yeah, it is. And obviously that game last year down there, ironically, we had a shocking third quarter where we kicked a whole heap of behinds and no goals, and didn't really lose by that much in the end.
Yeah,
all things considered, even that was the week before the bye too. So, yeah, look, I don't know. I just think that I guess all the new guys aside, the main guys, and it was our big time players. Sort of, they got it up and running and they got it going. So yeah, I'm going to stick with that and like I said, tip a win.
Yeah.
All right.
Our guns might get us over the line. I mean, if Harris Andrews keeps playing as well as he has been, Flocky Neal and Zorko, their efforts stays as good as it's been all season. Yeah. I can see it. I can definitely see it. But my gut's just telling me that it's probably not going to be one of those weeks for us. But hey, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, that's it. All right. Well, look, we're going to wrap it up now. The real world's calling us.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And we both have to go for the same reason as each other.
Yep.
without mentioning what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll see how it goes. 4:00 Eastern Time, Sunday afternoon, Adelaide Oval. It's on Channel 7, Foxtel and KO, and pretty much every radio station because it's the only game on at the time.
And I think it'll be a good game either way.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, go Lions and
go Lions.
Thanks for listening to those who are, and we will revisit everything early next week.
See you then.
All right, see you, mate.